Hello everyone, I would like to talk about MMOs. MMOs in general and World of Warcraft and what we all want from them. First of all, people talk about MMOs and have been very arrogantly talking about them for a long time without understanding them or understanding what us the MMO players have wanted, even the players themselves and everyone making coverage about them have not adequately expressed what we want and what they want. I don't know why if everyone just doesn't have the wisdom to convey their own mind, but the only person that's came close is a creator called Divium Furor, and even still, he has not done it quite adequately. People like Josh Strive Hayes have said things like, these MMO players are asking for the world, this impossible game that cannot ever be made, and blah 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 blah. We are not asking for that. And I'm going to tell everyone today what we are all asking for and what we all want and need, because no one can seem to convey it. We are looking for in an MMO some basic fundamentals. And we could actually get the MMO exactly as we want if even some MMOs existed today changed these basic fundamentals. And I'll explain them now. First of all, people want a world where you can attack anyone basically anywhere, whether they're their own faction or not. In fact, we don't even want factions. We can also trade with these people, talk to them, and team with them all at the same time. These are simple things. In fact, you could change the mechanics of World of Warcraft to simply flip a switch and do this. A server actually done this called Ascension, which has since been converted to not that because people whined about it even though they had the option they wanted everywhere else. Now, what do I mean by this and why is it important? What I mean is, right, for example, let me give you an example of an old game I played. I played an old game called Conquer Online, and in Conquer Online you could do this. Now, long story short, I farmed a very long-term thing, a special transformation ability called Night Devil to gain it. I found it after 2 months of straight farming, and after years only 3 people, including myself, had it. And the UI of monsters and players, like how you looked at them and seen them on the screen, looked the same. Now, I was called Lord Terror at the time, and I always hung out in this abandoned desert castle. It was just part of the world. And I would use my Night Devil from time to time just to hang out in that world. And at one point someone chanced across me and I started RPing saying, "How dare you enter my castle, I am Lord Terror, blah 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 blah." And done a lot of what would seem like a Demon Lord NPC, and I would PvP these people and kick them out, or I would ask for tribute, or I would chase them out, or things like that. And I could tell them these things because I could speak to them. Because of this, people actually thought that I was an NPC boss there, and people made a myth about me, how sometimes a devil would appear in that region. And the reason that could be done was you could talk to anyone while also being able to attack them anytime. And I could ask for tribute and say, "You must give me this or I'll kill you," so I could trade them. Now, this type of simple system that doesn't exist in World of Warcraft, for example, allows you and the players to make infinite content. For example, imagine a game where you can make a troll, or even a mage can transform into a troll with some kind of illusion or transmutation magic, right? In that kind of game, you could appear as a troll, go onto a bridge, literally tell people crossing the bridge, "You better pay the toll or I'll kill you crossing this bridge and you can't get across otherwise." Then other players, perhaps noble crusaders, could come along and then do their RP saying, "Move out the way of this bridge, troll, or we'll destroy you." Or perhaps the players trying to get across there could hire mercenaries, and those players could play mercenaries and be like, "Yeah, we'll get rid of the troll for this amount of money." And this is all available with these simple mechanics. For example, in World of Warcraft, if you try to do this, let's say an orc, or even a troll, I guess there is trolls in that, not the type we're used to, but yeah. You couldn't speak to the Alliance, so you couldn't convey this RP to them. You could, I suppose, tell your own faction the Horde, but you can't attack and kill them to make good on this threat for fun. And you cannot trade the Alliance, so you couldn't like ask for tribute to cross the bridge or something. Or you could never even be the noble troll monster and team with the good guys, because you can't like team with them either. You can't like make friends with these different creatures because they're different factions. This kind of world is limited, and through this limitation, this self-created infinite content is not available. And almost no games have this system, and these simple mechanics in any kind of MMO is what we are looking for. The MMO itself doesn't really matter. Not really. It's like with these fundaments you can make any game far better. I played this old game called Conquer Online, and I would play it to this day even though it was a lot older, because it was that much better with these fundaments. But it went pay to win, so it's probably the very first game to ever go pay to win, and got ruined, so I can't play it anymore. But we cannot do this in all these other MMOs, because in all these other MMOs you always have two factions, and you cannot talk to the other faction, and there's sometimes even no world PvP at all. You cannot attack your own faction or just all the other players, so if they shit talk you or bullshit you, you can never really do anything about it. And you usually can't trade the enemy factions, so you can't like kind of do any kind of like strong arming. So the world is just not really like a world, it's more like a forced chat room, because you can't really take any real actions in your control. Everything you want to do has to be structured. It has to be like structured PvP or structured this. None of it is free form or random or spontaneous, and that's the problem. And again, this isn't really just about bullying players, people to be thugs. Yes, people can be thugs, but that's even interesting for you if you're a kick-ass player, because you can have this dynamic encounter where these bullies, these thugs try to rob you and you defeat them all. And this gives room for heroes to come. Like again, you can have a noble hero, maybe the reluctant anti-hero that comes to save people. A player can do that and be that person. Or they can be the noble paladin who desperately wants to help and goes to help out of selflessness. Or they can be the devil-may-care mercenary who will sell their services to take care of these bandits, or even to join the bandits. All these things become possible and player-driven, and it's infinite. With these like basic systems, these basic switches flipped. But we also want a good MMO with it. So here is the next set of fundaments that's the problem, and now we're going into World of Warcraft. Now in World of Warcraft, I can agree that vanilla to Wrath of the Lich King are the best expansions, but to be clear, even as early as TBC and Wrath of the Lich King, they are worse than vanilla, and some serious things are lost when it just gets to as early as TBC. There's a reason way back when everyone was screaming at BlizzCon, and for years online they wanted vanilla. They didn't want classic TBC and Wrath of the Lich King. They wanted vanilla, and there's a reason for that. You see, in vanilla you had a lot more interesting spells and abilities and items and trinkets and locations and world travel and even dungeons and things like that and lore. And you'd think that TBC would just add on to this, but it in fact does not. It actually adds a new location but lobotomizes the entire previous content, and I'll explain why. First of all, as soon as TBC comes, every item and every profession before TBC becomes useless. And in dungeons and etc. Not just because of stats, even items that should be useful in TBC, like for example the Tidal Charm that stuns someone for 3 seconds as a trinket. You'd think, well, maybe at least you can use that as a trinket if you want to, because it's not really a stat item. So it doesn't matter if its stats are better or worse than TBC, because it's a skill use item. Maybe it could give a stun to someone who desperately wants one. But no, because then it adds the prefix onto it that This item does not work over level 60. All the items that don't even have stats but do unique things cease to work above level 60. The engineer magic reflecting trinkets that last for 5 seconds cease to work over level 60. A lot of the potions that are really interesting, like the flask of petrification, cease to work. So many of the really powerful, interesting things get removed from the game. In fact, I think it's fair to say, besides stats, the players get fundamentally, universally weaker in amazing, like, powerful things they can do with both professions and skills at the next expansion. Also, all the new profession things and all the new items and all the new everything are all in, as well as the higher level, are all in Outlands. So the entire previous world becomes useless. You never even have to go back to, like, you cannot get any potion item, armor crafting item, engineer item from the previous world. No plant there, no mine, no anything. Every single thing there becomes useless. So no one travels that world anymore, no one goes there, so it's empty. And it's become a barren wasteland, because even at 60, when everyone got 60, you would see people travelling the world forever. They would just keep travelling the world. You'd see them, they'd constantly be world PvP. You'd see them trying to find interesting trinkets or farm their resources, and it was never ending fun. Even without these interesting systems, World of Warcraft vanilla was still that good. And the raids were really repeatable. But when you go to Outlands, not only is all this lost, but you don't even find people in the world because they get flying mounts. So everybody no longer even explores Outlands on foot. So you never see anyone in Outlands to fight, to like explore, to meet, to like travel with. Everyone is just in the air. Like, everyone just goes through the air, drops down to a point, picks their thing up and goes back in the world. Therefore, the world becomes effectively dead. So everyone, you only find everyone in the cities. This is where this first began. This did not begin in vanilla. There was always so many people in the world. This began in as early as TBC. The world becomes dead, and the entire previous world becomes destroyed. And also, you can never go back to the previous content of dungeons and raids because the level cap raises. That's the next problem. This is the same issue with Wrath of the Lich King. The same thing happens and Outlands becomes dead, and the entire previous content becomes useless, unusable. It's no longer content you can play and enjoy and go back to. It's dead content. It's just something you run through alone, solo. To fix this issue, if people wanted to redo it, if Blizzard wanted to redo it, what you should really do is, and this should be the case for all future MMOs, this is what Guild Wars 1 did. When you release a new expansion, do not increase the level cap, and if you add gear, add interesting effects to it, or have the stats the same, just give it different like bonus effects, so it's interestingly different, but not more powerful, at least in a number sense. Or if you ever did make a number better in the rare case, maybe that's a one-off item in the new expansion, or like an item that sacrifices something else, like you get, like, say, negative 200 intelligence for like 300 stamina or something like that, and that's the only reason it's better, because it's a one-off item or something like that comes with a sacrifice. So keep all the class abilities the same and just keep it level 60 and just add new content. And if you upgrade the professions, which you probably shouldn't, honestly, they don't really need done, allow stuff from those new upgrades to be gathered from the previous world as well, parts of it, so the whole world is being travelled, and remove flying mount from everybody in every zone, because the world just dies from it. Or you could have something interesting called like mount fatigue, whereas you can get 10 minutes a day on your mount. Like, you could, like, for example, fly for like 50 seconds off your mount and it's got 9 minutes and 10 seconds left. You'd be surprised how much you can get out of that. The mount would feel actually more valuable as you're enjoying this amazing flying effect. It'd be really cool to have, but it wouldn't be something you could constantly rely on. Just a little fun convenience now and then. But you would still have to travel the world normally. This way, the game would remain perpetually balanced. You would have loads of different interesting gear sets and trinkets people could mix and match. And you'd have so many different builds through gear that way, not just talents. And honestly, even removing the PvP trinket and any damage trinkets would be a great way, because everyone always goes for a damage trinket. Or I guess you could have one damage trinket. I guess one thing you could spec into is damage. But then, like, just one. And then everything else can be like interesting abilities. So you'll always see people using interesting abilities, like weird abilities that comes from their trinkets. And put more active abilities with less stats, like give more choice for that on items. So maybe a person could sacrifice stats for some crazy effect, like that old item in vanilla, the invulnerable mail, which gives like immortality for 10 seconds, but it has no stats on it. And you could maybe reduce this from, instead of 30 minutes down to like 10 minutes. So it's not every fight, but you can use it more often and allow all these things in the arena, so people can just actually use their things. Secondly, this would be a bit controversial, but remove separation of servers. Force everyone to both PvP and PvE. In fact, let me prefix this. There should be no PvP gear, right? I'm mostly a PvPer. I prefer it, but there should be no PvP gear. Because I remember I planted PvP in vanilla mostly, and I was like, oh, I wish I could just PvP and get some gear. And I was forced to, like, I actually always enjoyed dungeons, but I was forced to raid. And when I done that, I realised how fun and cool and interesting they are. And when you're not forced to do something, it can get to the point you never do it. And it separates the people and it makes the world too gamified. Like, think about it. You beat this epic raid boss, this like galactic fire being, and you like, let's just say you get the staff of, I mean, you could even just say the hammer of Ragnos, but let's just say the staff of Galaxius, the sun god, and it's like a small solar sun, and it's like this cosmic powerful staff. And you get all these other, like, listen, then just you get the full regalia, which is like a full outfit of like the cosmic void, and you're like a star being. And then you go to fight some guy who's just got like the basic PvP set, and it's just like some, I don't know, metal looking armor, and they whoop your ass in a second because you don't have any resilience or PvP power. Like, that doesn't make any lore sense, and it seems foolish. And the resilience and PvP stats itself are a sign of foolishness, where the game isn't balanced properly, so you need to like mix the stats for players. It's nonsense. All these cool items you should get from exploring the world, not just sitting in your own little hole, almost like your own little instance, just doing PvP from like 1 to max level. Like, you should have to be in the world, traversing it, speaking to people, meeting people and things. But also PvEers should have to suffer the risk of like going out there and fighting, because honestly, it's not good for your mentality. I actually believe this type of MMO has separated people psychologically in real life. The non-PvPers are terrified of conflict and never want to say anything real. And believe me, I'm a centrist. Like, I'm really more an individual centrist type. But there's a difference between a centrist and a fence sitter, and there are people who are just always terrified to ever say anything political, and will always fence sit, not because they believe in balance, maybe they think they do, but they are just terrified of ever taking a stance and never getting angry because they're afraid of looking dumb, even though being angry doesn't mean you're wrong, it just means you're angry. Like, you can say something very calmly and be an idiot, or you can say something very wise and be furious while saying it, but fools will not notice the separation here. So the non-PvEers are terrified of conflict in real life as well. They never want to ever be challenged or step outside their own bubble. And likewise, the hardcore PvPers, some of them are okay and have a good bit of like strength and spirit, but others, like the deranged rogue who camps people for like 100 times for like 3 hours until the person's spirit revives, are deranged and want to like burn and cancel everyone when they do a minor fucking slight. Like that pirate software guy who people Yeah, people want to say, oh no, it's because he's against stop killing games. Bullshit. People were losing their mind at that guy for 3 years because he made a misplay in a fucking video game. He made a misplay, and sure, I don't think his play was even that bad, but it was a misplay. It just wasn't a catastrophic one like everyone said, but it was a misplay. And so he didn't own it, or he was like, and honestly some of his points were quite fair. The reason that the fuck up happened because the tank fucked up, and that was a more catastrophic misplay. But yeah, he made a bit of a misplay and didn't own it. That's a bit proud, but isn't everyone a bit proud sometimes? I think maybe if you were going to be at the most extreme, you could rage at that guy for about a week. At the most, really deranged, a month. And even then, it's kind of too much, honestly. But people would not shut up about that shit for like 2 to 3 years. Because he didn't hold his blizzard for like another 4 seconds. I mean, what the fuck is going on with that? So yeah, the PvP people are fucking crazy. And that's why I think, because this, like, the way you play in these games become your life and it affects you. That's why these people should be forced to mingle and forced to experience the whole breadth of the world. Because it's meant to be a world, it's not meant to be a game. That's what MMO is meant to be. It's meant to be a massive multiplayer world, not just a game. In the world, there's all kinds of things in the world you're supposed to have to experience, and it has to come to you. You're not allowed to choose it. And you have to face it and overcome it. And by separating PvE and PvP, and also even RP, you put yourself into your own little bubble and you don't experience the more interesting, different things that make you a more nuanced person. So I hope I've conveyed this pretty well. I know I've rambled a bit, but my main point is what we need from the MMO genre is the ability to attack everyone almost everywhere, maybe not the starting zones. A good counter to this, right, is that if a person is killed, they can no longer be attacked in PvP for 1 hour. That stops griefing. That allows everyone to like go and grief if they want to, and not like bullshit some streamer and kill them anywhere. But it doesn't allow them to torment them forever. They get their kill, that's enough. You have to wait an hour. An hour is plenty of time to be free and do what you want. They need to make the ability to trade everyone everywhere, even the opposite faction. Honestly, they need to remove factions altogether and just let every player team with everyone. Even if they're faction different by lore, everyone should be able to attack everyone and be friends with everyone. So if your true enemies are fucking with you on your own faction, or your own species talking shit to you, you can kill them, which is meant to be like one of the freedoms of an MMO. You can do what you can't do in this real world. As well as trade everyone, so you can like do this kind of weird economy stuff. Oh, also one more thing I mentioned, drop and loot in PvP. This is one of the issues. Some people don't want that, and other people want full loot drop. Full loot drop is stupid because it means you have to basically get copy sets of all your gear, and it's just a waste of time. Really what should be happening is if you should have the player drops 1 item from their inventory on death every single time and 10% of their gold. That means they can deposit some of their gold in their bank and make their bank useful for depositing that. And they have, let's say, a 20% chance to drop a item from their inventory. And that would, their gear, sorry. And that could make that a bit frightening to be out in the world, but not too crazy punishing. And then, again, and you can team with everyone as well. So this makes it like an endless, full, free world where you can do anything that is within your imagination, instead of being constantly so hamstrung and chained and limited. Then when you release content, you never raise the level cap, and the new gear is never stronger. It's just different and could be used differently for different builds, have unique effects. So everyone is so different and interesting. You're always seeing people with like way different builds based on their gear and trinkets and things. So every new expansion is just more things instead of the old world being destroyed. This is what we need from MMOs. This is what we want from MMOs. This is the key. These are the true keys for it. It's actually quite simple. And I know some people, like the non-PvPers, will be afraid and come up with a bunch of excuses, but they simply have not stepped out of their own small box and expanded their horizons and opened themselves up to conflict. Because yes, whilst there can be a lot of terrible things that happen with full PvP and all these things I'm talking about, all these crazy toxic politics can happen in the game, they themselves can be fun, these cool shadow wars and spying and things. Look at Barney's Scarablord's adventures. He does all that, but they had to force that by making 2 accounts, like buying another wall account, because that's how they talk to the opposite faction. They had to buy another World of Warcraft account to make an opposite faction person to then speak to the people, or use Discord to communicate with them. And we saw how cool the rat destruction war in Silithus was when we watched Barney Scarablord's adventures. That was really awesome, and that was world PvP. That was full open world, like trade PvP. And they'd done these things by making other accounts and trading stuff that way into the black market auction house and talking to other people in Discord and making other accounts. But that should have just been basic in the game's like mechanics. They had to go around their mechanics to make it work. So that shouldn't be the case. And you know, I want to know what the magic of it is. You don't actually even need castle buildings and things to even do this. In this old game I was talking about, Conquer Online, me and my guild done this, and we done it by just being able to occupy a zone, say it was ours, the desert castle, and then just stay there. And we could communicate it and tell people because we could speak to them. So we didn't even need to build a castle or get some zone mechanic wise and say this is technically our zone with like NPCs or like mechanics. We just technically had the desert castle because we sat in the desert castle, said it was our base, treated it as our base, met there, and everyone knew it was our base because we held it, even though it was just like a random landmark. Like imagine if Ironforge had no NPCs in it and it was like a little, I don't know, let's say level 20, level 30 NPC mini non-dungeon quest zone, and you just went in there with your guild and occupied there and just walk by the NPCs because they didn't aggro you because you were high level, and you just said this is our zone, and you just lived there and just like met there and talked there. You didn't need to like win some kind of event. You just had a strong enough guild to sit in the location and say it was yours. You can do that thing, these kind of things with these types of games in your own imagination. You can make so much fun and so much cool things happen if you just get out the mindset of PvP is where a rogue griefs someone, or where you grief someone and some character over and over and camps corp them. There's so much more interesting things you can do or be if you just have fun with it and get into all the, just treat the world like it's a world and make yourself a goal in it and have fun with it. And then imagine it's not even just a sandbox, but it does have a lot of cool things like World of Warcraft Classic, where an actual full world that has content and lore and things anyway. And this is just a bonus. It's magic. It's like the best. I've played a few games like this and these are the best games, and the only reason I don't still play them isn't because they can't exist. It's not because they died. They have existed and been successful for decades, and the only reason they stopped is because the devs got corrupt, or I admit some of them eventually died, but only because they were truly ancient and had a success. Having success for 20 years is not a failure of and then dying is not a failure of a game. Like I played Ocarina of Time for like 2 years when I was a kid and stopped playing it. It wasn't a failure of a game, it was one of the best games I ever played. The game simply concluded because it was an old game, and of course a single player game that finished. But my point is, these old games had a really good run, and even though they were so basic, the fundamental mechanics that allowed such freedom were so good that people played them that long. Imagine a modernised game with like all these better playstyles and gameplay and graphics with these old freedom mechanics. That's what people want simply. That is what we're all looking for. Sadly though, in modern day, with people finally deciding to make these, even more morons seem to think that it was the old mechanics that made that like the old technology which made it good. People are finally making a game like this called Monsters and Memories, and it has this kind of freedom PvP talk trade thing I'm talking about. But But the game is ancient. I mean, it looks ancient. It's a new game being made, but the graphics look ancient and the gameplay looks ancient. So, like, it's just hopeless, honestly. So we need someone intelligent to actually make a proper game. So I'm putting the information out here to like clarify it for developers. And perhaps maybe one day I can do it myself. But I need a lot of power and money for that. But we'll work towards it because I may as well see if I can slowly build towards that in the meantime. Just as a backup if no one ever actually just makes a good MMO. So with our new modern graphics and stuff, if we can just make one MMO like this, it can beat all our forever game. Anyway, sorry for rambling a bit. I could have made this shorter and I could have made this kind of more concise, but well, there it all is. Hopefully I've described it all well enough. I rambled a bit, I'm sorry, but yeah, hopefully you guys all understand this is what we're looking for. I know everyone knows this, most people do, at least the ones who are looking for this new type of MMO, but they just haven't conveyed it properly. So hopefully like people can share this everywhere, like let everyone know, like spread it to the world so game devs and big companies can see this and know this is what we're looking for. And it will be a sustainable game. And just not to, and wait, one last thing that's important. Don't listen to whiners. If you're a company and you see a lot of whiners complaining about them getting killed in PvP and they want the game to change to not be this, do not listen to them, right? Because these people are actually clinically insane because they have thousands of games that already have this and yet they do not play them. They've moved to this new game because it's shiny and new. But they would never have stayed at it because it's not what they wanted and they were too stupid to understand that. They just saw something shiny and new without understanding the details. So even if you changed the game to what they wanted, they will just actually go back to their old thing they were playing anyway because you've now made it the same as what they're used to. But they're used to the old thing and have time and investment in it. You need to keep it the new thing and they need to work to get used to it. And see if they don't, just let them go because they will definitely leave anyway. Because if you give in to them and make the thing just like every other MMO, well then they will have another 1,000 MMOs just like this to choose from, which they have more investment and time in. In fact, while they may be whining on the outside, they simply do not understand themselves and why they are even here. In fact, long term, the only way to actually keep them is to keep it the way you were making it, the new type of thing. Because they'll whine about it and they'll whine about it, then they will leave to go back to their old MMO, realise it's not what they want, which is why they were here in the first place, and over the long term, they will come back in greater numbers. But changing it to appease them will never actually succeed, even monetarily, because they actually don't want it. Because if they did want it, they wouldn't have came to this MMO in the first place to even try it. They would just be happy in the one they currently have. Because again, there's already literally about, there's always probably actually about, like going on about 650 MMOs that are just like this, if we're going to be literal about it. There is actually quite a lot of them, and every person is whining how they don't have an MMO to play, because these mechanics I'm talking about only actually exist in about 6 MMOs, and they're really old ones, and they went pay to win or have died. And that is why you want to make this and keep it, because it will succeed eventually. Again, people saying that they don't succeed are not being honest with themselves, because again, the old ones succeeded. The only reason they're not being played now is because they're so old, and the very few new ones that have been made are only the PvP. They have no actual content outside the player made content. They're just like empty sandboxes. That's the only other thing you need to do. You just need to make an actual MMO world with some lore and some dungeons and some just fun mechanics as well. That's it. The problem is we have things like Mortal Online 2 and Albion, which are literally just empty dead worlds that have nothing in them except like gear creation and an empty set of like resources people fight over. There's no story, there's no NPC dialogues, there's no quests, there's really just nothing. This is the actual problem. People saying these MMOs can't succeed are wrong, because they are actually the very first MMOs were like this. This is what brought the genre so high, and it's actually why they did succeed. They have succeeded, and even classic World of Warcraft had PvP servers where you could fight in world PvP. The problem is you couldn't talk to the Horde or the Alliance or trade with them or team with them. That's the only thing we needed with it. There are so many, almost every MMO player wants this. That's why everyone keeps complaining so much despite there being so many MMOs, because this is the critical thing we all want. You just don't see so much noise about it, because people don't make noise when they're happy. And sadly, the people actually believe you already know this. But they don't seem to realise that no one has really clearly stated what they want. But this is what we're looking for. So make that, don't compromise on it, don't be cowardly, and if you have the money to make an MMO, buy some fucking property and rent out some apartments to have a stable income, you dumb fuck. Because if you have millions, maybe buy some fucking property, like a fucking high rise, or make a car park or something, and make about 300 grand a month on that, and then you can have plenty of funding for the game, because it's going to be infinite funding. I don't know why people put all their money into the game without just having an income source. You need an income source that is not part of the game's fucking shit, okay? If we're going to make this. I might make it one day, but we're going to have to work up to that. I would like to, but I don't have the power yet. Maybe if my channel gets big enough, we'll see about doing that. Anyway, that's enough. I need to end the video. I've been spinning on too long. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'll see you later.